Welcome everyone to the November webinar with David Shectman. My name is Trisha Smith-Pierce and I'll be hosting tonight. David is going to speak to us tonight. He is an English language fellow with the U.S. Department of State. He is working at the Rajavat Ubon Ratchathani University in Ubon Ratchathani, Thailand. He will be sharing with us tonight how to create a warm classroom environment, and he'll delve into the relationship between the classroom environment and learning, and then he'll also share several community building exercises that can strengthen community bonds. So we have, if you would like to ask some questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those as we go along or at the end, whichever is most appropriate. And be sure to set your chat box to make it all attendees and panelists. Okay, David, take it away.
Thank you so much, Trisha. I'm really happy to see you and I'm really excited to be here. So as Trisha mentioned, my name is David and I grew up, and as you can see in this fun interactive map, right in the middle of the United States. That state in red is called Kansas, and that means that I was born and raised a Kansan in eastern Kansas, nearby the border with Missouri, in a town which is called Topeka. That's why I wrote down there, Topeka, Topeka who? That is actually the capital of Kansas. We refer to that as the heartland because, as you see, if you make an X over the United States, Kansas falls right in the middle. So because it's right in the middle, they refer to the area or the region where I grew up as the heartland. But I haven't lived in Kansas for a long time, and I just wanted to talk a little bit while people are signing in and getting their chat boxes set up. I wanted to talk about my background. So as Trisha mentioned, I'm a fellow with the United States Department of State, and I'm working here in Thailand. And when someone receives the honor of becoming a fellow, they get this nifty t-shirt, which you can see here in the left picture. It says Fellow 50 because this is the 50th anniversary of our program. There was just a major celebration in Washington, D.C. last night, actually, or 2 nights ago this week, and honoring our program, which is very exciting. And the shirt is fabulous. It's made out of organic cotton. And I like to use mine to do yoga in, which is a passion of mine. So here are a couple of pictures of me doing yoga, one of them in my Fellow 50 nifty organic t-shirt. Here, I wanted to title this slide, Things I'm Not Doing, because I really enjoy baking, but I don't have an oven where we live, so I'm not baking right now. I really enjoy playing the piano, but I don't have a piano where I live, so I'm not playing the piano right now. And last, there is a picture here in the bottom left corner of a building in Budapest. It's the Hungarian Parliament building. And I put that picture in because I spent many, many years working and living in Budapest, but I'm not there right now either. But it's a beautiful building built for the centenary, the 1,000-year anniversary of the founding of the state of Hungary. The architect was named Steindl Imre, and if any of you visit Budapest, I encourage you to get a tour of the Parliament building. It's right there on the shores of the Danube in Pest. It's beautiful. But that's enough about me. Hopefully everyone has signed in and has joined us. So I'm going to turn to all of our participants and ask you to consider a question. So get out your thinking caps, and hopefully Trisha is going to help me to pull up a poll. So the question I'm going to ask all of you out there is, why are we even talking about this? What does community in the classroom have to do with teaching English? So I'll give you 30 seconds or so to read through these answers, and then please vote. Again, my question is, well, this webinar is ostensibly, that means it's supposed to be about teaching English. Why should we even talk about this idea of community in the classroom? What does that have to do with teaching English?
Okay, David, we are getting some responses now. I'll turn on my video so you can see me. It looks like it's divided. A lot of people are saying number 4. Students can't really learn if they don't feel comfortable. So this is actually cuts to the essence of how learning works.
That's a good answer.
Yes, that has the majority right now. Almost everybody's responded. We'll give it a few more seconds.
All right. Yeah. Well, Trisha, did you respond? If you had to pick one of these, which one do you think you would pick?
Uh, I kind of like number 4. I think it's number 4. Yes, the students can't really learn if they don't feel comfortable. I think I feel really strongly about that one. That students have to want to and feel comfortable and safe. I think would be is a nice word that you use in your title.
Definitely. Just to buy 10 seconds, I want to talk about what I refer to as the TESOL Big Six. I'm going to
Okay,
flip
one moment, David. I'm going
slide
to tell you
so we
that
can
I'm going
end
to
the
end.
poll. But second answer, yes?
I was just going to say I was going to end the poll and I was going to give you their response. Okay, so it looks
Okay,
like
let's
that
do
most
that.
people actually agree with what I said. Students can't really learn if they don't feel comfortable. That's what the vast majority says. But some people are saying it's hard to just pick just one. That there were a couple of them there that they wanted.
Oh, such astute participants.
Yes.
So in all actuality, it's sort of all of those except for number 5, which I just put in as a lemon answer. So there, I wanted to introduce something that I like to do when I'm teaching is to identify key or very, very important principles for the class or for the unit that we're talking about. And one essential idea that I'm going to talk about today is the idea of something called the affective filter. And that means that if students don't feel safe or comfortable in your classroom, that a part of their brain actually shuts down, and this leaves less of their brains for learning. So I've read a lot about this. I've seen some videos about this. And the way that I understand this, although I'm not a neurologist, is that part of your brain is actually actively scanning for threats. So when someone feels like they are not safe, say in class, instead of being able to use 100% of their brain power for learning, maybe part of their brain is actually looking around saying, is someone going to attack me? What's going on? It is kind of draining your brain power, actively searching for threats. So one trick to kind of enhance students' learning and to allow them to actually use 100% of their brain power for learning is to make sure that students feel warm, students feel safe, and students feel accepted as part of a classroom community. So this idea is not mine, this idea of the affective filter. It was postulated by Stephen Krashen, who's a professor, I believe at USC in California, in Los Angeles. Stephen Krashen is someone that if you study second language acquisition, you will read about him a lot. He's probably about my father's age, so he's maybe in his mid to late 70s, I'm guessing. He's very active. You can read a lot about him on the internet. Later, I'm going to link to a video interview with him that I think is fascinating, and I hope that all of you will watch. But so in the mid to late 70s, Stephen Krashen postulated 5 or maybe 6 big ideas about learning. And Trisha, I'm going to put you on the spot now. Do you know any of these by chance? So Trisha and I should say, we studied at the same graduate program, and I had a very excellent experience at George Mason University. I should give my alma mater a shout out. But I learned about this at Mason. Did you learn about this at Mason by any chance?
Yes, I did. I would actually say I love the affective filter. That's one of my favorites. But I think I really like the input plus one, the idea that you
yeah,
can
it's a biggie. Yeah.
You can only learn one plus, you can only have input that's one level higher than what you already know. That you can't have input plus 100 and expect the students to learn it.
I'm so impressed that you know that. The one that I like to talk about is called acquisition/learning. That's not the topic of my conversation tonight, but about how there are 2 types of ways that people learn language. One is that through kind of subconscious, through listening and trying to understand, and then the other is through actually sitting down and studying grammar rules. Like the way that we learn our first language would be almost solely through acquisition. It's just by listening and trying to think and to figure stuff out. Whereas learning would maybe be sitting down and trying to understand the grammar behind it. It's not what we're talking about tonight, but I'm impressed with Stephen Krashen, and I hope that teachers out there can look or check out some of his ideas. But going back to the topic that is at hand, the affective filter was postulated by Stephen Krashen. And in short, this means that building a sense of community in your classroom is essential for success in teaching English language learners. I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the TESOL Big Six. I started to talk about this earlier. So TESOL has postulated these, it's a major international project for teachers who are teaching English as a second language. And they have many materials designed around the idea of these 6 principles to be the very best teacher, or principles which are essential for classroom success, you could say. And the number 1 principle, as you can see in this handy diagram, according to TESOL, is actually the idea of know your learners. So TESOL has 6 ideas, and at the heart of those those 6 ideas would be the principle that if you don't know the students that you're teaching, you're not going to have classroom success. However, based on my personal experience, I would advocate, or it's my belief, that the second principle, that creating conditions for language learning, if I were designing this, I would put principle number 2 here at the heart of the TESOL kind of big 6. So I'm going to ask all of the participants out there, why do you think I would advocate for kind of swapping these 2? Why would everyone just think for a second, why do I think it's important to create good conditions for language learning, at least as important, if not more important, than knowing your learners? Is there anyone out there that would like to write an answer into the checkbox?
Okay, we have one response that says, it makes sense because you create conditions that get you to know the students and learners. Mindy says that she has lots and lots of students in each class, and that there's also that there's a requirement to get to know your learners. So maybe creating the environment helps you do that. Those are some ideas that we have so far.
Good. Trisha, what do you think about that? I'll share with you my thinking, but I'm kind of curious to hear yours. What do you think? Why is it possible that I would want to flip those 2, do you think?
Well, I will tell you my opinion, but first I'm going to tell you a few more of our respondents. And it takes a while to get to know the students. So maybe that will come later as you create the environment. That's what one person responded. And I would agree with that. That's why I wanted to say that first.
That's very valid.
Is that if you create the environment, it does facilitate getting to know the students. So you can do that. Now, it is difficult when you have large numbers. It's hard to get to know every student. So, and that's what a lot of the people are saying, that they have like 40 students in their class. They have large groups. And so as you create the environment, then you can get to know the students.
Beautiful. Oh, I like working with you so much. And I couldn't have said that almost any better. And I want to thank my wonderful colleague, Mindy, for chiming in. I have a kind of different understanding of the TESOL Big 6 because of my experiences here in Thailand. So where I live in Northeast Thailand, it's not uncommon for there to be 50 students in a class. And I know many teachers who are English teachers, and that means they're teaching, say, 6 or 7 or 8 different classes throughout the course of the week. So one teacher could have, say, 250 or 300 or even more students that they only see once or twice a week. So because of the specific circumstances of teaching here in Thailand, I would actually flip. My thinking is that it's not, unfortunately, feasible to know all of your learners here. However, one thing that teachers do have control over would be the atmosphere or the conditions for language learning in their class. So specifically based on my experiences teaching here, I would advocate for flipping those 2, simply because teachers are not always going to be able to have as intimate a relationship with every student here as they would like if they're teaching hundreds of students each week. But one thing that they do have control over would be the atmosphere in their classroom. So that's a little bit in terms of my thinking, again, about why it's important to have good conditions, at least as important as knowing your learners, in my opinion. Although in my specific current circumstance, I would go out on a limb and say it's actually more important. Okay. Good. I'm going to turn my focus away from kind of theoretical ideas about learning or the filter, the affective filter. And what I'm going to do now is to present some different techniques that you can use to build community in a classroom. And the first place that I would say you could start very easily would be thinking about how students sit in your class. So I'm going to ask Trisha to call up another poll, this one about classroom seating.
Excellent, David. I just launched it so everyone can participate.
So everyone take 30 seconds or so and think about classroom seating. So when you think about classroom seating, which of these do you think is best or most beneficial for student interaction or student learning? You can pick one here in the poll, and then maybe try and write your answer or some other thoughts if you have them, particularly the question, why? I'm curious about to understand participants' thinking. You can answer that question, why, in the chat box.
Okay, David, we'll give it a few more minutes to,
yeah.
Or minutes, no, seconds.
Seconds,
actually.
That's just seconds. Fine.
As to a why, we have one respondent that said start out with everyone in rows facing forward and then switch to groups and pairs. That was one idea. Another person said the why is it depends on the task at hand. So it depends on the student. These are some of the why answers.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Another person said they like freestyle because you do not have, but if you only have too many people, some people say it's tricky to choose. With the different styles, teacher can monitor the students and facilitate them easier with these different groupings. Grouping together aids communication is what one person has mentioned.
Oh, I like that, and I agree with that. So you get bonus points, whoever wrote that in. Thank you. That's good.
One person is, are tables always necessary? So maybe that's a question that you can answer later on. And
I'm going to move on. Is that all right?
Can I move on to the poll right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just want to respond to or report what the poll says here. Most people said in the U shape, or
that's
freestyle,
so interesting.
And others not listed, and they describe different ways, like starting out in rows, then moving to other things, maybe not having tables or something. Okay.
That's great. We're going to talk about a lot of these. So as I mentioned, I grew up in East Topeka, kind of in a rural area, actually outside of Topeka. Well, where I went to school was a very rural area because of the way that my school district was shaped. But one thing that I wanted to mention to students or to participants, and that I speak with my education students about a lot, is that here in Thailand, I see a lot of seating like this, with students sitting in rows in individual bubbles, but that right now, teachers in the United States are actually moving away from seating like this. And Trisha, I want to ask you one quick question, because we're about the same age. I don't actually, but yeah, I think that's a fair statement to make. We're roughly the same age. I know you grew up in Wyoming, is that correct?
That is correct.
How did you sit when you were growing up? Like, was it like this, or do you remember like when I was growing up in East Topeka, definitely this classroom was approximately how we were seated, for sure.
I would say that was true in the early years of my education, but then as I got older, the teachers started to change us around, which I think is kind of interesting that was my experience, because a lot of times it's the opposite, that like when you're in elementary or primary school that you move a lot or have freestyle seating, but then when you're older in secondary school, they stick you to the rows. But my experience is that I had more experience being out of rows as I got older. And I don't know if that's because education was starting to change.
Shifting. I don't know.
I'm not sure, but definitely when I was, yes, that's what you would hope. But definitely as a primary school student, it was in rows.
Awesome. Great. I want to talk a little bit about using U-shape or using circular seating in class. So these are both what I would say effective or healthy ways to seat students, particularly in elementary or even elementary school, I would advocate for having a U shape. And then as students get older, I think circular seating for, say, high school or possibly junior high students, that would be a fabulous way to seat them. And this is because it allows students to see and to hear one another. It allows students here on the left, you can see that students could easily pull their chairs into the middle of the U shape and then sit across one another. So it's very easy to break up into groups. And the reason that I spoke about elementary school students using a U shape as opposed to a circular or another shape initially would be because that way elementary school students can utilize the whole entire space of the classroom. Something I always speak about is how young students need to be active. They need to be up and moving around the classroom, that's physically what their bodies are meant to be doing. And so students are not able, elementary school students are simply not able to sit for long periods of time. And a rule of thumb or one guideline that I like to always talk about is that students can sit and concentrate for 1 minute about each year they've been alive. That means that a 7-year-old can literally sit and concentrate for about a maximum of 7 minutes. Alternately, a 10-year-old can only sit and concentrate for a total of about 10 minutes. So instead of fighting or swimming upstream, I always encourage my teachers, the teachers that I'm working with, to remember that in terms of their lesson planning and to have students up and moving around the classroom. And this U shape on the left-hand side here allows elementary students to see and hear one another clearly and easily. And it also allows them, or it facilitates movement throughout the classroom. So on the right-hand side, it would be similar ideas for slightly older students. Even high school students or junior high students still need to be up and moving, but I like to have students sitting in circles. And I want to go back and answer one question that was just posed recently in the chat box, which is, do we even need to sit at tables? And personally, I would say no. If you see any videos or pictures of my university teaching, which a lot of them are available on Instagram, other places too, I would advocate that, you'll see my students are almost never seated in a row. They're sitting on the floor or they're sitting in small groups, tables pushed together. Thai students that I'm working with, they enjoy sitting on the floor. And so typically my class will begin by the students pushing all the chairs and tables to the back and then coming and sitting in a circle or sitting in small groups on the floor. So I don't know if that's specific to Thailand, but here in Southeast Asia, and also but where I was teaching earlier, I think students are not flummoxed by the prospect of sitting on the floor. So I'm not certain that students always need to be seated in rows or at tables at all. And that's actually a perfect link into another current trend that I wanted to discuss, which is this idea of freestyle seating. And what I wanted to do was to watch a video, but instead I have a link to that video. So I have linked to a couple of videos, one which I discussed earlier, which is an interview with Stephen Krashen. And I also have a link to this video, which is talking about the benefits of freestyle seating. So this is a good contemporary American classroom. And the rule in this class is that students may sit wherever they would like as long as they feel safe. If you watch the video, you'll see that actually they have shelves which allow the teacher and the students to kind of box themselves off in a little corner. It's a very flexible classroom in terms of how the students sit, but also how the classroom can be arranged. So again, it's a long answer to the question. I don't believe that students necessarily need to be sitting at tables at all. I think it's all right to have them sitting where they feel most comfortable. And there isn't one clear answer. Maybe a student does feel most comfortable or do their best work sitting at a desk on their own, but generally students, in my experience, they won't choose that. So it's just something for teachers to think about in terms of their seating.
David, can I mention some comments that have been going on here in the chat box, which
Yes.
I think are really interesting. One person commented that often the rows, when you sit in rows, it's more teacher focused. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was
That's
a really
legitimate.
good point to bring up, that often it's less student focused, more teacher focused. But then also the idea that maybe the U shape promotes a critical thinking idea, a way to promote critical thinking and think about it that way. So I just wanted to bring up those comments and highlight them, because I think that they were great in the chat box. Before
I want to, if I may be so bold as to comment about say one or two things about that. First, I agree. There are times that a class needs to, can be more frontal or teacher directed.
Correct.
I just generally try to move away from that, because so many teachers, particularly teachers who are just starting out, young teachers or fresh graduates of education programs, it will be, say, 90 or 95% frontally based. So the ratio that I always speak with my teaching students about would be, say, try to aim for maybe 30% frontal and a 70% student-based. So there are times where a teacher has to get up and teach. They have to introduce new ideas. They have to grab control of the class. They have to pull everyone together. They have to make announcements. Whatever, that is also part of a teacher's duty. However, traditionally, that is what teaching looked like. And I think it's far healthier, and students thrive when it is not necessarily all teacher focused, whereas it is more, the onus for learning is placed back on the shoulders of the students, and students working together in groups or students working together in pairs to complete projects, as opposed to students turning their attention to the front of the classroom where all of the information is from the teacher. So I appreciate that if you're aiming for a class where students are listening and focused on the teacher, maybe rows are the very, very best way to do that. That said, and there are times where a teacher has to get up and teach. That said, I think it should look more like these pictures as opposed to this picture, generally speaking. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So I want to go ahead and introduce a community building idea, which I like to call Me Too. So I always speak about this, how I try to make my presentations a mixture of some theoretical ideas, but more practical ideas that teachers can take and can grab and go run with in the classroom. So this is a project, I was thinking about this afternoon, that when I was working at the ESB, the English School of Budapest, the second year, this was, hang on a second, August of 2017, the first day that teachers came back for orientation, we broke up the teachers into pairs. I think that we drew those randomly, actually. And then I gave the teachers something that they had in common with their partner. So two educators came together, and they got about 10 minutes, and they had to talk, and they had to write down a list to see how many things they possibly could think of that they had in common. It was a very, very interesting idea. I'm glad that I did that. I've modified the idea into something that can be used. I think it's best used with students, with groups of 10 to 15 students. And I like to call this idea Me Too. So Trisha, I want to play a little game with you. Is that okay?
That's excellent.
Okay. I'll ask you a question, and it has to begin with, I'll make a statement. It's like, I have or I like, and then I'm going to ask you the question. Like, okay, let me start. I like to shop on eBay. Do you like to shop on eBay?
I don't like to shop on eBay, but
okay. So
sorry, that's not going to work.
No, that's okay.
I like to shop on Amazon. Do you like to shop on Amazon?
I like to shop on Amazon. Yes, I do. So there's one that we have. Okay, now let me ask you another question. I like to shop in thrift stores. Do you like to shop in thrift stores?
I don't normally, sure, I like to shop in some thrift stores, but I don't normally shop in thrift stores.
Do that. Okay. Wait, can you think of a question that you want, or a statement with I have or I like?
I like Penang curry. Do you like Penang curry?
I really like Penang curry. Very good. So if we were standing in a circle, I would now turn to the next person and say, yes, I like Penang curry. Do you like Penang curry? The idea is to try to make it around the circle one time and find something that all 10 or 15 students or participants have in common. And this is easier said than done. So it's a good way to encourage a student community and students to talk about their likes and their dislikes. And it's also an exercise that can be done with very young students or students who don't have a tremendous amount of English, because they have to make a simple statement that begins with I have or I like, and then they have to turn that into a question like, do you like or do you have? So it can be used with many different kinds of students, and it's a way that everyone can kind of build community by finding something that they have in common. Trisha, can I ask you one last question?
Yes.
I like to shop at Trader Joe's. Do you like to shop at Trader Joe's?
I love to shop at Trader Joe's. And I would ask anyone out there that has ever shopped at Trader Joe's, do you like to shop at Trader Joe's?
Trader Joe's,
yes.
That's great.
It's a great grocery store in the United States.
What do you like to buy? Do you have a favorite product at Trader Joe's?
Too many to say. That's all I will.
Wow.
The list is too long to share. We don't have enough time.
They have really good chocolate and really good cheese. Those are the things that I bring back from there. Good. Thank you so much. I'm going to shift and move on to another community building exercise, which I call Roses and Thorns. And this one is good because it can be used as a writing exercise. So it can be used as an exit ticket, or it can be used as a quiet writing prompt for after lunch or after students come back from a break. But students, so they can work individually writing, or students can sit and discuss first with a pair. So something that we talk about in teacher trainings is the idea of think, pair, share, and then you extend that to square. So two students start together and they are talking. And then once they've shared their ideas, then they are joined with two other students to form a square, and all four of them can then talk about this. But it's simply a way to get students talking and opening up about what's going on in their lives. So students should be talking about something good right then in their life, and something that's kind of on their mind, or something that's kind of been keeping them up. So it's, again, great to use as an exit ticket. It's something that you can give to students as homework, as a way to kind of know your learners, the number one principle from the TESOL Big Six that we talked about earlier, just to know about what's going on in your student's life. So Trisha, I would like to model this also with you, if that's okay.
That's fantastic.
Okay, so Trisha, can you tell me something good that's going on in your life right now?
So one rose for me would be, we just found out that we're moving to Manila this coming summer of 2020.
That's awesome. Okay, so
should I ask David? So is that how we would do it? Then I would ask you, what's a rose in your life, David?
Well, I have been working really hard recently, and I just completed, I think, 63 I read 63 final essays over the weekend. And that was a lot of work. And then I have this webinar, and then we are on break for about 2 weeks. And we are going to go visit Laos, which is right next door. It's very close to the part of Thailand that I live in. And I'm very excited because here we can't get like French bread or cheese. And I'm interested in the places that we're going to visit. And I'm interested in the Lao French cuisine very much so. And also when people visit Asia, maybe Laos isn't at the very top of their list. So some of the places we're going are still a little bit less explored. We'll visit Luang Prabang, which is a big touristy hotspot, but I'm excited about visiting Laos and eating some really good food. Yeah. Now let me ask you one other question. I hope there isn't anything, but is there anything that's on your mind or that is kind of keeping you up at night? Are you having difficulty with anything in your life right now?
Well, I just realized a thorn that you're getting to go to Laos and that I'm not going, because we went there and we had a great time and loved the food. It was fantastic. So.
Oh, wait, after this we have to talk, because I did not know that. That's good. All right, so just to recap, students work in pairs talking about something good in their life and a difficulty or a challenge that's in their life. Then they can join that in a group, or they can use that as an exit ticket, as a writing prompt. I like to have students write after a break or after lunch. I feel that they can remain focused for a longer period of time. So are there any questions, or does anyone want to say anything about that?
I wanted to say, so in Roses and Thorns, roses replace the good thing in our life.
Mm-hmm.
So basically you'd say, what's a rose in your life or a good thing? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, that's completely correct.
Excellent. So no more questions right now.
Okay, we're going to move on to one other community building activity. This is one that I like to call tag feedback. So people who are fellows in my program, some of you hopefully might be watching. I have a long presentation about this, which is posted to our closed forum, the Community of Practice, that no one has really commented on or even opened, but it's there if any of you would like to take a look at it. It's a way to solicit feedback, again, for to kind of open the forum for students to share what's on their minds. And I've used this in a whole lot of different situations. I've used this at an Access teacher training I did. I've used this with Fulbright ETAs. I've used this with my own students here at the university. Actually, I used this at the Access teacher training I did was in Mandalay, Myanmar, and it was about 105 degrees. That's not an exaggeration, actually. It was really 105 degrees while we were there, and I was doing my presentation, and about 10 minutes into my presentation, the power went out, which I had been warned that the power might actually go out. So because I'd been warned, I had some stuff printed out and I kind of had to shift. But after my presentation was supposed to be maybe an hour and a half, I think. And so the room, when we lost power and lost air conditioning, it got hotter and hotter and hotter, and students simply could not sit still, or the Access teachers simply could not sit still. So I was thinking about what to do. And so I got everyone to stand up and to form a circle. And right then, a video crew came in because our teacher training was being featured on the Voice of Myanmar on national television. And so there's actually video of this tag feedback from our teacher training sessions in Mandalay last year, which is available on YouTube. I will go and I'll put that link in the very, very end. So you can see us actually doing this. It's a way for teachers to know what's going on in the minds of their students or participants in their class. So TAG is an acronym. T stands for thank. So students or participants can take a moment to thank someone. It can be someone in the class or in the room, or it can be someone outside of the room. They can ask for information, they can ask for advice, they can ask for help, or they can give, they can give a compliment, they can give advice, they can give some feedback. So Trisha, just because you have video and sound, let me start by asking you, is there anyone that you want to thank, anything that you want to ask, or anything that you would like to share, like to give some compliment, to give some advice, to give some feedback to me or to anyone that's out there? While Trisha's doing that, if anyone wants to, you can please write your ideas, someone you want to thank, something you want to ask, or some feedback, a compliment, to give some advice. You can write that in the chat box.
Okay, so I think right now I would like to thank first all the participants that are here and all their comments. And I would like to give a compliment to, I need to see who it is in the chat box. It is, where are you? I've got to remember your name. Kitapong. And he came, or she came, I'm sorry if I don't know which one you are, but came, got home 5 minutes later, joined our webinar, and I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
That's a thank you, but also a give a compliment.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, unfortunately, but thank you so much. You know, I had this nightmare that I was going to give a webinar and no one would be there, which even I would still talk and it would be pretty much the same, but it's a nice feeling to know that actually someone is sitting out there, or some people are sitting out there and listening and hopefully learning from Trisha and from myself this evening. I just want to actually thank RELO in general, to thank you, and also to thank Alice and Eve and Vic, because those are the people with whom I'm working very, very closely. And I feel blessed because they're all very, very good at their jobs. They're all more than competent. They're all excellent, but they're all also very, very good people. So that's a wonderful combination to have, a team, because sometimes you have people who are good at their jobs, but their heart isn't always in it, or their heart isn't necessarily in the right place, or they're doing a job for the wrong reason. Or it can be also you have really, really nice people who aren't very, very good at their jobs. But this is a wonderful trio to be working with because they're all such kind and good people, and they're all also very, very good at their jobs. So that's what I want to thank for helping make this happen. Yeah.
Excellent. I just would like to say, a lot of people are thanking you for doing the webinar. So that's the one I wanted to pass along. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, that makes me so happy. Good. I'm going to move on to talk about, before that, let's take one moment. We have time. We're doing okay on time. Let's take a moment to stop and reflect. So far we've talked about classroom seating. We've talked about an idea called Me Too, or a kind of a game. We've talked about the writing or the discussion prompt, Roses and Thorns. And we've talked about this other one called Tag Feedback. Think about these for just a minute. What are some things that they have in common? And which of these ideas do you like? Or if you want even better, stop and think, take a moment to pick one of these to use in your class right now. So stop and think, okay, the next time that I teach, I'm going to use in my class, or it can be next week, that's fine too. So again, just reflect for a minute about what we've been talking about. What are some ideas that they all have in common? Which of these ideas do you like the best? And which of these are you going to try to use or utilize in your class?
So most people let me see what they're saying. One person is saying that that they all tend to develop emotional intelligence and connecting with other human beings, and pointing that that's a really nice, that's what they have in common.
I agree with that completely. That's good if they do that. I hope that they do that.
One person commented, I really like this, about authentic conversations in the classroom. It helps you have those.
Yes, it does. That's another really good comment about the nature of, and also authentic language learning, that students will learn to talk about ideas that are actually pertinent to their lives and not just a dialogue that they're memorizing from a book or from a text. That's right. Very good.
Tag is also really important. And people have talked about using roses and thorns a lot. They really, as the exit ticket for writing class.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, good. That makes me so happy. Good. I hope that you take these ideas and use them. So do not be bashful. Experiment with them in your class and then be in touch. Let us see how they go. I'm going to move on to talk about one last idea, and then I'm going to kind of have some things in summary and open it up for some other questions again. We're doing okay on time. I want to talk about something that I refer to as equalizing participation in class. So all teachers have had this situation where maybe they ask a question and then it's just crickets. It's dead silence. Nobody even really wants to respond. I face that here all the time. Other teachers, depending kind of on the culture and how students feel empowered or not really empowered, maybe they ask us a question and the same 3 to 5 hands shoot up immediately. So that still means if there are 30 students in the class, only about 5 students out of the 30, or 1/6 of the class, is actually actively participating. Or maybe a teacher asks a question. This is particularly common, unfortunately, in elementary school. Or junior high, teacher asks a question. The girls put their hands up and boys just shout out the answer. So one way to try to equalize the playing field in terms of participation is to use something that I refer to as equality sticks. It's very, very simple. So a teacher can just take either popsicle sticks or pencils and write each student's name on a popsicle stick. And then when it comes time, I had some popsicle sticks right here, but I don't see them. When it comes time to ask a question, instead of asking the question out to the whole class, whereas maybe no one would answer, or the same 3 students will answer, or someone will shout out the answer, they can grab a popsicle stick and then read out that student's name. This is a way to encourage students to participate who might be a little bit shy but still have good ideas, or students who might just need a little bit of extra time to formulate their ideas and are not necessarily comfortable answering immediately. So if you have students like that, you can kind of tie this into a technique that I call answer, punt, or pass. So let's say you pull a popsicle stick and, it has Trisha's name on it. I'm going to ask Trisha a question, but then I can say, Trisha, if you want, you can answer the question right now. You can punt. That means if you want, you can ask for some thinking time, and then I'll come back to you in a few minutes. Or you can pass. So let's say the question is, what are you most looking forward to in Manila? So Trisha, I'm going to ask a question. What are you most looking forward to about Manila? If you want, you can answer the question. You can buy some time and think. You can punt, or you can say, I'm not real comfortable. I'm going to pass.
I think I would actually have to punt because it's still so new that I'm not exactly sure what I'm excited about yet. But if I took 30 seconds to think,
so you're going to punt. We'll come back to that. That's just fine. I just wanted to say that you and I have talked about that, and I know that was kind of a dream, or that's really where you wanted to go. And so I'm so happy for you and your family, because it's not always that way in life, that you have something, you have a plan, and you really want it to come to fruition, and then it comes to fruition. And I know that happened for you. So that's great.
Thank you.
Another way that you can kind of equalize this without using sticks is to simply have either roll a die or have Google pick a number for you. So during our recent Fulbright ETA training, there were 15 ETAs plus myself, plus Vic from the embassy, plus Trisha. So there were 18 of us. And so I had each person's name on a spreadsheet. Each person had a number 1 through 18. And then I could turn to Google and I could say, Google, pick a number between 1 and 18. And then that person would answer the question. Or another good way is to simply use dice to try to figure out who should ask. So this is another way to kind of equalize participation in the class, is to have, again, students list, or have students working together in groups of 4 or 6. So if you have this, you could say that there are different groups, and each group has a number 1 through 6. You can roll a die, and it comes up as group number 4. So then within group number 4, each student has a number, and then you can roll the die again. So if this were a die that I just rolled, the number would be 5, and that means, here we go. It's Tatiana's turn to speak on behalf of her group. Again, you can allow the students to kind of pass. You can give them thinking time, or you can have them answer. So kind of randomizing class participation ensures an equal playing field for all students. I believe that this sends an important and a good message to students, talking about considering how they are a community and that everyone's voice is appreciated, and to encourage participation from all members of the class. Like I said, sometimes there are students who have very, very good ideas, but don't always raise their hand. There are other students who need a little bit of extra time, who would answer a question, but they just need a few minutes to formulate their answer. So that's why I had that kind of modification to let them punt, to say, I'll answer that, let me think about it, but we will come back to you in a few minutes. Again,
David,
yes.
I may interrupt for just one moment, just because we have some questions here that I wanted to bring up. So one person asked about modeling the answer, punt, pass. Would you do that in the beginning to show the students how that works?
Sure.
Is that something that you would do?
I would model that.
With a specific topic, for example.
I believe in modeling as opposed to directing. So particularly in ESL classrooms, so much of the time can be lost or wasted because students don't necessarily understand what a teacher is standing in front of the class saying. So as opposed to giving students instructions, I think it's much better to just do an activity and kind of pull them along with you. And after you have done that activity once, all collectively, you can return to it later many times throughout the year, and they will know exactly what there is to do. So I don't know if this is the question they're answering, their question that they're posing exactly. I would say that it's much, much better to actually do an activity altogether, or to model it, as opposed to try to explain what people are supposed to be doing. It's, again, something that an experienced teacher does. The more that someone teaches, these are just kind of teacher tips that you can pull from your hat, from your bag of tricks. An experienced teacher will know that, particularly students who are still learning English, it doesn't mean a lot to them to have a teacher standing in front of the class and talking. What will mean something much more to them is simply doing something. So, and once you have done it, you don't necessarily need to explain it again. So do as opposed to explain. And yes, I would model or use these in my class. I do, like I said, we did a training and I used these. So this isn't just something theoretical that I'm advocating. I use this in my class all the time.
So one more question. Rizka is wondering about how to motivate students to speak up, because in this class, they're reluctant to ask questions even when they don't understand something. They seem that they don't know how to ask questions. So that was one thing. And I felt like this kind of went along with what we're talking about here about the equalization of participation. This is relating it to questions.
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that students have to ask a question right when you're discussing whatever is pertinent at the time. Many good teachers have like a question box in the room where a student can write a question down and leave in the box. Maybe they can even do so anonymously, or they'll allow students to write them, say, a note or an email, or however they communicate with their students, something after class. So perhaps opening up other avenues for teacher-student communication would be good to simply encourage students to ask something, maybe not in front of all of their peers, and as opposed to say after class or even in the evening after school, they can write a message, or maybe they're embarrassed, so they can just write something even in their native language, not necessarily in English, and put it in the question box. So I would just say in a nutshell to explore other avenues to have students, to offer to students to ask questions, as opposed to just during the class a student raises their hand and speaks in front of everyone. That's my gut reaction. That's what I would say.
Fantastic. Thank you, David.
Are there any other questions right now?
Not right now. Thank you.
Okay, so actually this is a time that I was going to say I love taking questions. We have about 8 minutes left, and I'm happy to talk for the next 8 minutes, but we already received one question via email this morning before I was flabbergasted. I was so pleased, actually. And the question was, what tips do you have for building community when you're working with special needs students? And in this case, it was specifically a teacher who's teaching deaf students. So I thought about this, and I think that you can do almost all of these activities with students with special needs. Deaf students still have feelings. They still have roses and thorns that are in their life. They still have people they want to thank, or questions they want to ask, or feedback that they want to give. And they will still have something in common with the other people that are with them in the class. So something that I learned, the masters, so I don't know, we didn't overlap at Mason, but I had a class that was absolutely fantastic with a woman named Leslie Snowball. Leslie Snowball designed the PYP curriculum for the International Baccalaureate. She taught in Budapest for a time. She was teaching in Amsterdam for a while. She has a fantastic, fantastic catalog of resources, which are a little bit expensive, but they're worthwhile investments. I don't know if she taught your class by any chance, Trisha, a woman named Leslie Snowball, but Leslie Snowball's background is in special education, or what we refer to now as learning support. When I was growing up, it was called special ed. But one thing that she spoke with me about is that good teaching techniques are good teaching techniques if they're for English as a second language classrooms, if they're for learning needs, students working with special needs, or for so good teaching is good teaching, and there isn't, so all of those are good tips or techniques. So I encourage teachers not to think about like a standard classroom here, whatever that means, and then a learning support classroom way over there, or an ESL support classroom way over there. I just encourage them to think about like good teaching, and this idea of scaffolding, of meeting the students' needs, of knowing your students. All of those will help you thrive and survive in class, whether you're teaching mainstream students, whether you're teaching native speakers of English, whether you're teaching students who are still learning English, whether you're teaching students with special needs or some type of unique ability, whatever that is. That's something that Leslie Snowball spoke with me, or spoke with us about a lot. And if any of you have the opportunity to attend a seminar or to take a class with her, I encourage you all to do so. It was wonderful. So I can't think of any special modification or anything that I would specifically advocate for students who are, say, deaf, other than everything that we've talked about thus far. I think that they would also work with students who cannot hear.
David, I would like to say just one of our participants has said that they actually teach a class with, let me see if I can find it here, with blind and visually impaired students. And that sometimes it takes them a little bit longer to warm up to strangers and visitors, but that all these activities would still work for them. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, maybe just even go more slowly or do more team building when someone new enters the classroom. That's something I'm going to move ahead. We only have about 5 minutes. And something that I want to talk about before we run out of time is the idea of setting the tone for, say, an entire semester or an entire year. And that is because the way that your first couple of classes go, that will determine the nature and the atmosphere in your class for the whole entire semester or the whole entire year. So it's something that's been on my mind a lot, just because the Thai calendar is different than many other calendars. So Thai students just started a new semester, I think last week, or some of them just started this week. So it's something that I've been speaking with student teachers about here a lot recently, is how to set the tone for their work over the next X months or over the next semester. So if you take time and discuss, for example, rules communally during your first class, that sends a message about community and about, instead of, it's one thing for a teacher to come in and hand out a worksheet and say, these are the rules that I want to follow. It's another, and I think more healthy and beneficial way to kind of set standards for their class, is to do that, to say, to open that up as a discussion, to say, well, what are good behaviors? Or what do you think is legitimate? What are some rules or some guidelines that we can set communally all together as a class? So what should our policy be about, say, turning in homework? If someone doesn't turn in homework, how should we handle that? I spend the first week of every single semester with every single class setting rules together with the students. I believe that that sends a message. Another thing that I do is try to use these ideas to get to know the students. If you start the year off with a good atmosphere and a strong, safe foundation or communal foundation, even if things get rocky later in the year and students are tired, or you're not getting enough sleep, or you're overworked, or X, everyone bombs a test that you thought was really easy, whatever happens, if things get rocky, if you have that foundation, you can get back to that foundation. But if things start off on the wrong foot and teachers and students don't really gel, or there isn't that built-in atmosphere of trust to move onward from, you will never go back and be able to put that, to instill that in class. So think about starting the year off and using some of these, thinking about, for example, discussing rules communally. Another tip that I would give would be to learn the students' names as quickly as possible and use them as much as possible. Again, here in Thailand, we have very, very large classes. I know many, but not all of my students' names, but it's something that I continue to work on, and I try to know as much about them as possible. Again, early in the year, you can have students interviewing one another or introducing one another. It's just something to think about. This goes back to the idea of knowing your learners and setting up an atmosphere of trust where learning can occur. There are all kinds of materials available. I put some actually on the COP for the fellows out there about like interview templates that you can use early in the year to get to know your students. My very, very final thought, because we're running out of time, is that actually teaching does not begin and end in the classroom. I urge everyone out there who is teaching to please remember to interact with their students also during breaks, to go, if you're having coffee and your students are in the cafe, go and have a small chat with them. You can talk about the weather. You can talk about, my students talk about Netflix and movies. You can eat lunch together after class or before class with your students. The more that you interact and see and humanize yourself outside of the classroom, the better your relationship with students will be in the classroom. So if there's a school play or a school concert or a school dance, a school game X, please try to participate in that. It will be beneficial for your life in the classroom, and it will help remind your students that you're a person, not just a teacher, and it will facilitate your relationships with students and thus their learning in your class. Okay. here is a list of some references that I spoke a little bit about, a lot of information about Krashen and the principles we talked about. There's an interview here with Krashen that's fascinating. I hope everyone watches that. He's brilliant. There's another very fantastic video about flexible seating in schools. Both of those links are here. There's also my email and my LinkedIn. You can contact me on either one of those. If anyone has questions or would like to use one of these things and tell me how it goes in your class, I'm very, very curious hearing about what's going on in teachers' classrooms. Maybe you have a modification that's even better than what I presented. That's happened a lot. Actually, Mindy modified one of my Four Corners activities and it was great. And I like to use that now. So please take these ideas, try them, and let me know how they go.
Excellent, David. Thank you very much. I will bring myself back here. Thanks, David, and to all those that participated.
Yes.
This is wonderful. We really appreciate David taking his time to teach us about community in the classroom. Additionally, we would like to invite you to our next webinar in December. It's going to be December 3rd. Normally it would be on the 5th on Thursday, but it's going to be on the 3rd, which is a Tuesday because of the holiday on the 5th. And it's going to be with Molly McHarg, and it's going to be robust research, what makes a good source. So I'm really looking forward to this as well, to help us teach our students about research and what it means to research. And
Molly is brilliant. I'm really looking forward to that too. I like her as a person and I respect her as an educator.
Yes, it's fantastic. Right here, David put up on the last slide of his PowerPoint, the flyer, which you can see. And, but it will also be sent to you, everyone that participated in the information will be in the follow-up email. So you'll be able to do this. Thank you for everyone again for participating. And remember to follow AUA and RELO Bangkok on Facebook. I put that at the beginning of the chat, so you can see that. Thanks again. And everybody have a great night. We'll see you next December 3rd. Thank you, David.
Thank you. I'll see you all soon.
Goodbye.